Hello fellow cinephiles, Film Guru here. Today I'm reviewing A Wrinkle in Time. This film was directed by Ava DuVernay and it stars Zach Galifianakis, Oprah Winfrey, Reese Witherspoon and Levi Miller. And this is the story of Meg, whose father has disappeared. He was a scientist working on something and he just disappeared 4 years ago and no one knows what happened. And the story is really based around her brother Charles Wallace and their mother, Mrs. Murray. And the absence of her father has created frustration within her. She doubts who she is. She doesn't feel normal. She struggles. She gets picked on a lot at school. And even to the point where the principal says to her that maybe she should just accept that her father's gone and isn't coming back, which is really hard for a young girl to hear. It follows the journey of her and her family trying to come to terms with this, the absence of their father and how it's affecting them. Her young brother, Charles Wallace, is a very highly intelligent 6-year-old. Who seems to be intuitive with people's feelings and knows what they want before they know what they want, and he knows sort of what's going to happen. And there's a strong bond between Charles Wallace and his sister Meg. Life is kind of ordinary and mundane, and she doesn't know what to do or where to go, or she's sort of a bit lost, I guess you would say. Along the way, she meets Calvin, who's a young guy from her school. He sort of plays basketball, very popular kid, and he's sort of interested in her and a friendship forms with them. Then we're introduced to Miss Who's It, who's a mysterious character played by Reese Witherspoon, who just appears saying, it's just a bit odd wearing next door neighbour's sheets, and she's not quite normal sort of person, seems a bit strange and odd. Charles Wallace seems to know who she is, and along the way they're introduced to two other misses played by Oprah Winfrey and Mindy Kaling. And ultimately these misses come to Meg and Charles Wallace and ask for their help in order to stop a darkness known as the It that's taking over the universe. And they explain to Meg that her father's still alive, and if she can go on this journey, she'll be able to find him. So she reluctantly agrees to go on this journey. And then Miss Who's It goes with them and creates a tesseract, which is a way of transporting yourself from one planet or universe to another. So they go on this journey and they wake up in this sort of strange place, and Mrs. Who's It slowly explains what's going on. The other witches do appear as well, but they slowly goes on this journey to find her father with her brother as well. And along the way they meet some interesting characters and go to sort of dark sort of places. There's one particular planet that they go to that is run by It, which is a darkness engulfing everywhere, and it's reaching as far as Earth. And all bad decisions and envy and anger and stuff towards people is attributed to It. So once they get to this planet, they're introduced to a character called the Man with the Red Eyes, who is not what he seems. Charles Wallace ends up being sucked in by the It because he's highly intelligent and wants to know what's happening, and he's drawn into this. And from there on, it's about Meg trying to retrieve her brother, get her father back, and stop this It from engulfing the world and other universes. And so it's a battle between good and evil, I guess you would say. And she's trying to stop this with the help of Calvin, and trying to track down her lost father, that she feels that if she just sees him again, everything will be fine. Things don't work out to go according to plan, and things don't work out as they should. And she has a lot of anger still within her. But it's about her overcoming that and conquering this It and finding her father again. Look, this is based on a book that was written in the 50s. Obviously they've updated it. And certain scenes take place in certain areas that are different from the book. There are scenes in the book I think work a lot better from the book that I didn't use in the movie, such as when you first meet Meg and Charles Wallace. They're down in the kitchen, he's boiling milk, the mother appears, and there's this really great scene between the three of them, and then that's when Mrs. Who's It appears. That's much different in the movie. They do have the scene, but they take away the mum, and I just felt that it lost some of its appeal and drawing you into the film, I think. And I think the problem too with the film is it doesn't sort of set up the characters, it doesn't spend enough time with them, you don't really know who they are. Like if you've read the book, you understand who they are and where they're coming from. But if you haven't, you feel a bit lost. There's no connection with her, even when she gets picked on. Other scenes too that are different from the book is when they first meet the man with the red eyes in the book. It's a planet they go to that everything's in sync and everything's the same. They end up at this big building called the Central Intelligence, where they encounter it, which is a giant brain. And in the movie, they do something completely different from that. And I just felt the giant brain was a better idea, even though they did sort of, what they chose to do did work, I guess, in a way. Look, what I really liked about this film, it has a good message. Visually, it looks really nice. Ava's really done a really great job of creating the visuals and the world, and it looks kind of really fascinating. I'd love to know more about the universe and the other characters within that we don't meet. There is a section in the book where there's these creatures that don't have eyes, but they have tentacles, and that's how they touch and feel. And the scene in the book with them is really, really great. They take that scene out in the movie, and I think it loses something without it, because there was something special about that particular scene. The acting's all solid here. It's a sort of fun and interesting film. It's good, but not as good as it could have been. I was a little disappointed, to tell you the truth. I had high hopes after reading the book, but in saying that, within the book, it felt like at times the author didn't really know what they were sort of trying to say, or what sort of book it was, or what story they were doing. They couldn't sort of find their feet. It felt a bit like Wizard of Oz and a few other things as well. And when I first saw the trailer, I thought it was a sequel to Tomorrowland. And even though that film wasn't great, I felt it was a bit better than this. But the morals in this film, I think it's good for young girls. I think it talks about people accepting who they are and their faults, and trying to become the best person they can be and live the life they want to live, and not succumb to what other people think or feel or say about them, and just be who they are. I think that's a very important message, and that's really great in this. And the young girl who plays Meg does a really, really great job. Levi Miller is really good, an Australian actor who's done a variety of things, and he does really solidly here. And the young boy they cast as Charles Wallace, I really liked. And that was my biggest worry with the film, that they wouldn't cast his young boy properly. And in the book, he's my favourite character, Charles Wallace. And I'm glad that they cast who they did, and the young boy did a really, really great job. Everyone else is having a bit of fun and enjoying the sort of film. And look, like I said, there are scenes that work better in the book than the movie, and scenes that they didn't use in the movie from the book, which would have made it a bit better, I think. And I think, like I said earlier, the biggest problem with it is you just don't feel connected with the characters. They don't spend enough time with them at the start to really develop them into people that you sort of care about. Everything sort of rushes through fairly quickly to get to this travelling to other universes section. In saying that, they do have some good moments between Chris Pine, the young girl who plays Meg, showing when the Meg character's younger and her father is still around, and their interaction between each other and the mother as well. I think these scenes are really great. And there's some other scenes within the film too, where it looks at a bit more of the relationship between Mrs. Murray and Mr. Murray, Meg's parents, and shows what her father was actually doing, and the intelligence that he had and what he had worked out. I thought these scenes were really great and added to them, and that sort of gave it a little bit more, but I just felt there's other characters that didn't have much of a story line, and they jumped through scenes to create things, and it was all a race to get to these other universes and the visual effects, I felt. Look, final verdict, it's an interesting film. It's not as bad as people say. It's not as good as it could be. I think young girls will really get a lot out of this, about empowering young girls to accept their faults and be who they are and not worry what people think. I think if people have young kids or young daughters or young sisters and like that, they'll probably get a lot out of it. Adult-wise, I don't know if adults will get as much out of it as probably the younger generation or the kids. But it is, it's worth a watch. I did sort of enjoy it in parts, and I wasn't completely bored. I was into the movie enough to keep it going. It's not my favourite book adaptation, but it does okay with what it has. Look, I'm going to give this film 3.5 out of 5. Due to the things I mentioned, that's why a lower score. I think this film could have been done a bit better. But in saying that, Ava, the director, did a really great job with what she had, and I thought she got across her point and what she wanted to say. Anyway, that's all from me today. If you've enjoyed what you've seen here, please hit subscribe down the bottom. Otherwise, until next time, enjoy the movies.